Welcome. In this lecture, we are going to focus on the basics of cost accounting. We will try to explore and understand the most common terms used in cost management and their meanings. Cost management is one of the most interesting subjects found in CA curriculum. It is going to be an absolute cakewalk for you if you understand the subject. Now, in order to understand the concepts, we will now introduce a new company to you, Fingerfoods Limited. Fingerfoods Limited is a small manufacturing company which has just started its operations. The business of Fingerfoods Limited is manufacturing French fries. The operation is fairly simple. The company would buy potatoes and other raw materials like oil, spice powders, and preservatives and convert it to French fries. The company then decided to have three departments to start with: a purchase and manufacturing department, a finance department, and a sales and marketing department. After identifying three major departments, the company then appointed four heads. Mr. Rohan will be taking care of the entire company's operations. He will be the managing director of the company. Mr. Sham will be heading the purchase and manufacturing function. Mr. Farhan will be heading the finance function. And Mr. Peter will be heading the sales and marketing function. Finally, the hierarchical structure of Fingerfoods Limited looks like this. Mr. Sham, Farhan, and Peter, heads of each of the department of Fingerfoods Limited, would report to Mr. Rohan, who will be responsible for overall operations of the company. There will be one another staff reporting to Mr. Sham, but he will not be the manager. After understanding the hierarchical structure of Fingerfoods Limited, let us now move on to discuss the subject. Let us discuss some of the key terms used in the subject throughout and what it means. The first term is the cost unit. Cost unit is a term you hear in your day to day life. They are kilograms, gallons, tons, and liters. The definition of cost unit goes like this: cost unit is a cost object where you accumulate cost under a meaningful category. Here in our example, Fingerfoods may also try to measure cost incurred per carton box of French fries. A carton box contains 500 grams of French fries. The company accumulates raw material cost, labor cost, and overhead cost incurred to produce 500 grams of French fries in one basket, which will be called as the cost unit. A cost unit may differ from company to company and from product to product. Let us now move on to the next term, cost centers. He's Mr. Sham and he's the purchase manager of Fingerfoods Limited. He will be responsible for all purchase related costs. He takes care of activities like purchasing raw materials, transporting them to warehouse, fixing a warehouse and paying rent, paying electricity charges for the warehouse, and finally paying salary for his own staffs and warehouse staffs. All these costs will be sent to one basket called as Sham's Purchase Cost Center. While the salary cost of employees in sales department, finance department, electricity charges of office premises, security charges, and other charges will be accumulated under different cost centers. The charges related to purchase will be grouped under Sham's Purchase Cost Center. Since the company is accumulating costs for which Mr. Sham, the purchase manager, is responsible for, we classify this cost center as personal cost center. Similarly, if the company accumulates costs for which Mr. Peter, the sales manager, is responsible, we may call it as a sales cost center, and it is also classified under personal cost center. Alternatively, the company may adopt a different grouping structure for costs. It may decide to accumulate all costs related to its office canteen under one basket. This will be called as cafeteria cost center. All the raw materials used in cafeteria like coffee powders, cookies, and cakes, transportation charges incurred for transporting materials from a location to cafeteria and vice versa, the rent incurred for cafeteria, the electricity charges for cafeteria, and finally, the salary of the staffs working in cafeteria will be grouped here. Since this grouping is not done based on a person or a manager, this will be called as a impersonal cost center. Let us now look into a term called cost object. Cost object is nothing but a wider term for cost center and cost unit. Hence, any cost which can be accumulated under a meaningful category, it is called as a cost object. There can be many cost objects used by a company. Let's discuss some of the cost objects widely used by most of the companies. Product is a cost object. A laptop manufacturing company would measure cost per laptop. Here, cost object is one laptop. Hence, all the raw material costs, labor costs, and overhead costs will be grouped in one basket, which is per laptop. Activity is a cost object. Quality inspection is an activity undertaken by the company to check whether the product, the French fries, satisfies certain quality standards. It can be ISO 9000, ISO 9001, or any other quality standard. This will be done by a third party outside the organization. Here, the inspector's fees, cost of correcting the finished goods, that is, cost incurred after the quality inspection is made and changes are suggested, training cost of employees about the quality which the company is trying to meet will be grouped under one basket, which will be called as the activity. Here, quality inspection activity is a cost object. Service as a cost object. If you take the example of an audit service to a company, all related costs incurred in conducting an audit, like the fees paid to the auditor, his boarding and lodging expenses, reimbursement of his other charges, would be classified under one basket called audit service. This audit service is a cost object. The reason we call audit as a service and quality inspection as an activity is that in quality inspection, it not only involves service of the quality inspector, but other things like training company employees on quality, purchasing quality equipment for testing, etc. Process is a cost object. For companies like Fingerfoods Limited, cost will be measured by a process. In a manufacturing operation like French fries, it is not possible to measure cost per single piece of French fries because there will be thousands and thousands of identical and homogeneous units coming out in production. The production is done batch by batch and each batch goes through different process. First process can be cutting potatoes, second process will be adding spices, and third process will be packing. In every process listed down, all the units undergoing the process will be homogeneous. We will learn about how costing is done in this type of process industry later. For now, remember that if the products are many in number and are identical, then the costs are measured as a process. Here, process is the cost object. Project as a cost object. Let's try to understand what a project is. A project has the following characteristics. Before stating it as a project, check for the following features. It must have a beginning date and an end date. It runs for few months to few years only. After completing one project, the company moves on to the next project. It is not a perpetual function, meaning it is not endless. It is usually undertaken by companies in infrastructure sector like L&T or information technology sector like TCS. Thus, all the costs incurred in relation to projects are grouped under one category. Hence, project will be a cost object. Let us now list down all the cost objects we have seen so far. A cost unit, an activity is a cost object, a service is a cost object, a process is a cost object, and a project is a cost object. We have reached the end of session 1. Stay tuned and we'll connect in session 2.